Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Success Grade podcast. I'm very excited for this episode. I have a special guest today, Stacey Hylen. She is an international recognized business growth strategist, author, and coach, and was named International Coach of the Year in 2016. For over the past 16 years, Stacey has been helping six and seven figures entrepreneurs with the powerful marketing and sales strategies to get more clients, more profits, and more time off to enjoy who and what they love. She also worked with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes as a senior level coach with business mastery. Right, Stacey?
Yes.
How
Thanks
are
for
you,
having me. I'm
Stacey?
excited.
Awesome.
I'm fantastic.
Awesome to have you here. So I mentioned like you worked with Tony and that's awesome. He's very. I see him on video. I never seen him in person, but like I don't know where he gets his energy from. It's like he has like 100 batteries. I don't know. So tell us about your story. Where you been, and where are you now with your business?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I started in sales when I was very young.
Ah,
And I always did things to sell in order to fund my travel. So when I was a little kid, I wanted to go visit my aunt who lived in Maine, and I needed to buy an airplane ticket. So I started my first business selling stationery um,
okay.
to be able to do that. And then I just realized this week that the Olympics are coming up. And somebody said, like, have you been to the Olympics? So when I was 12, I wanted to go see the Olympics in LA with my friend whose grandparents lived there. Again, I needed an airplane ticket. I needed to, buy my way there. So I started another business in order to do that. So I always saw that I could like generate my own revenue that I needed, even when I was very young. Went to France as an exchange student, again,
Cool.
through a business that I started. And what happened was I after I went to school, I started going to sales. And when I was in my last sales job, it was a very consultative sale. And so I was helping the business owners that I was selling to. And I would help them with their marketing. I'd help them with their sales. And I was just able to see the things that they were doing that were not helping them be as profitable as they could.
Yeah,
And
cool.
my clients started growing their businesses like crazy. And I one of my clients grew her business 200%. And so I was like, this is really interesting. And at the same time, around the same time, my dad got sick with cancer and passed away. And it
Sorry for that.
happened, thank you. It happened really, really quickly, but it really made me realize like, what do I want to do with my life? And how can I make a difference? And so that's where I started looking into coaching. This was 20 years ago. Before coaching, like people would ask me what sport I coached.
Yeah, exactly. If you say a coach, they would probably relate it to some kind of sport like football, soccer, rugby, American
Yeah.
football, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was very cutting edge when I started coaching, and so I really had a mission, and I still do to this day, of giving entrepreneurs back to their families, so that
Mm.
my dad when he died, he was only 56, and
Oh, very
when
young.
he I it's very young, and what
Ah,
I realized as I'm pushing that 50 myself is coming around the corner is that when you die with all these regrets, it doesn't matter how much money you made. It doesn't matter, the businesses you grew if you aren't able to have those experiences with your
yeah,
family, with
yeah,
your loved ones,
yeah.
and do the
Especially
things that you've been put
exactly,
here to do.
exactly. So because like entrepreneurs in general, whether it's like starting up or like we mentioned, you help six and figures, maybe even eight figure entrepreneurs. Most of the time that they don't have time.
Yeah, it's funny because I always joke with my husband because my husband is in corporate and so he has a salary plus bonuses. And when his work is over, it's like, oh, I didn't get everything done. I'm like, yeah, but you're going to get paid whether you got everything done or not.
Yeah.
Right. But as an entrepreneur, we always feel like there's always something else. There's like what I see with my clients is that they set a bar, they hit it, and then they're like, as soon as they cross that bar, they raise the bar again on themselves and they don't
Yeah.
celebrate. Like one of my
Mm.
clients, he has gone from 6 figures to 8 figures. And on the day that he hit 8 figures, he didn't even mention like we were in our coaching call and I asked him a question. He said, oh,
By
I
the
think we
way,
hit
yeah.
we hit 10 million today. I was like, hello, maybe we could be celebrating this. And that's where I really started asking my clients at the beginning of every single session, like, what are you celebrating this week? What wins have you had since the last time we were on the phone? Because as high achievers, we're like, oh, it was just a little thing. Oh, it was just a little thing. And we need to be able to celebrate as we go.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe because they are like, to them the difference between 6 and 7 figures is not that much. I don't know, maybe they want like billions, or but
Well,
I don't know.
he had 8 figures, so that's pretty significant. When we
So
started, he was at 6.
so it's working with these kind of people, what do you see happen wrong with these entrepreneurs? What limitations they put on themselves, and the negative talk they talk to themselves? Like you mentioned, this guy, for example, he went from to 8 figures, and he didn't really it was okay, 8 figures. So I think 8 figures is something big. It's huge, like going. So
Yeah.
yeah, this, you are not small business anymore. You are a big business, basically. So what do you see the limitation they might do?
I think the biggest limitation I see is wanting to do everything themselves still. Because when you like, because it's been fun, because I've had several clients who've gone from 6 to 8 figures. So I've been able to follow the progression that they've gotten through. And what I've seen is that you start out when you're in 6 figures and you're still like working really hard and doing everything yourself. And then we're bringing in team, right? And the thing is they still want to have their finger in everything. They still want to do everything themselves. And I have another client, at 8 figures now that, again, he's gone from 6 to 8, and it's like he has to release some of the reins and empower his people that are really good to do the things that weren't his successful like strengths, like for example, operations, if it's not a strength, it's going to go way better if you bring in somebody that can do operations and
Yeah,
do
of
it
course.
really well.
Exactly.
And help you
Because
out, and then
is
focus
this one
yourself.
is a daily work. Is daily, for example, sales and operations is something that you do daily, and is basics for the company's overall incoming. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing I see as a challenge is downloading the genius from the entrepreneur into something replicatable. So like, for example, like the guys are really good at selling, and that's how they grew their companies. But now how do we take what they did and put it into a sales system for their salespeople, so that their salespeople know how to explain what the company does, they know how to differentiate, they know how to what happens is I help a lot of my clients go from being a commodity, where it's like you search the internet and there's 28 million results for what you do, to being a couture brand that like, oh my gosh, I want to work with this company. This is the company that's going to help me solve my problem. This is the company that's going to help me get here. And so that's really what we try to find, is like, let's get that systemized for all of your team so that they can do it as well.
I love that you mentioned like when going to couture, like because for example nowadays, if you are looking for information, Google has everything. If you're looking for products, there are a lot of products that are similar, but there is the product that is very cheap, and there's the product that's similar to it that is expensive. So you need to differentiate and you position yourself, I guess, in a place where you see your business fits in.
Yeah, and I think what also happens with my clients is it's not necessarily like in consumer products. Most of my clients are B2B, but what happens is you're competing. Like for example, one of my clients, he's gone from 6 to 8 figures. He's competing against $100 million companies, $1 billion companies that have like endless resources. So how do you stand out when you're competing against Goliath, and you're David, right?
Yeah, exactly. How do you, like, when you have a smaller business, even it's like making 10, 20 million, competes with the like Google's or these big companies? How do you do that, for
So
example?
what you have to do is, what we look at is, first of all, we look at who are your perfect clients, right? And so I believe that there's always a perfect client for you that isn't necessarily a perfect client for the guy next door, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is when you get really clear on that perfect client, those are the clients that if you look at your business, they're the top 20% that are going to give you 80% of your business. So if you build your,
so this 20-80 rule applies here too.
Yeah. And if you start building your clients around those perfect clients, then you're going to have less challenges with customer service. That like it's much easier, right? And they stay for a long time. So we look at the perfect clients, and when you can keep your clients long term, like for example, myself, I have clients that have been with me for 12 and 13 years.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Right? Versus most coaches, they have their clients for 6 months or 3 months, and then bam, they're gone. Right?
You have great sustainability with your clients, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it means that you can do work hard to get more clients, but you already have like a base to work with.
Right. But it also allows you to serve them at a deeper level and a higher level.
Especially know them for a long
time.
Them. Yeah. You've been with them a long time. So you basically know everything, I guess. So
So the thing is like, for example, with my clients, so we figure out what the perfect clients are, and then what is the pain and what is the goal for those perfect clients. So like, for example, Tony Robbins says people do things for 2 reasons: to avoid pain and to go towards pleasure, right?
Yeah.
That's it, right?
But mostly, but what I see mostly, you usually do it to avoid pain, because sometimes if you tell a person, I want you to do this for example, some kind of intensive, let's say it's money, but if there is some hurdle or something to step over, they would say no. I'm fine,
Yeah, and so that's where we have to get the messaging really, really strong, because the messaging has to show them like, okay, if you keep going away from the pain, right? You just keep going away from the pain, here's where you're going to end up, right? If you keep going towards the pleasure, here's where you're going to end up. Versus if you look at addressing the pain, and a lot of times, like, people have these fears and they're tied to the money beliefs that we have, right? That's one of the big things I do with my clients is look at, what are those hidden mindset beliefs that are keeping you small, because you have your family money story, like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. The rich are bad. I mean, even like in culture, like in North American culture, the rich people are always evil, right? Like if you look at Cruella, there's the new movie coming out with Cruella, and she's a rich woman that gets puppies to make fur coats, right? There's, in a Disney movie, right? So you see that it's like in the back of our brain.
This is actually, I think it's in every people's mind all over the world, I think, because they always see the people who have money, like some of them maybe they inherited, for example. So say someone inherited their money, they didn't really work for it because of that. And some people say I don't want to go into it, but maybe they stole it. So these kind of things go into or they got it illegally, because now, especially now, if we're talking, for example, about online businesses, we see a lot of things going on and happening, and not everyone that can be giving you certain, let's say, information that actually have it, or did it,
Right. So I think it's important, and I think I'm just speaking to North America because that's where I'm from, but depending on where the listeners or watchers are watching, it's really interesting to start paying attention. Like, what are the things your parents said? What are the movies that you saw growing up that you think about this? What are the TV shows that they really demonize people being wealthy? So going back to the perfect client, so you want to create a message that really helps the client. And so I'll give you an example. One of my clients sells pizza to school nutrition programs, right? Now, that is like the biggest commodity ever, is selling pizza in schools, because every kid pizza is their favorite food, and every single school sells pizza in their school program, in their lunchroom. And so if I were to call you and say, oh, Hussein, like, I have some pizza, do you want to change your pizza? Well, what happens is I'm thinking, I'm not going to change the company I'm using. That sounds like I have to go get a new purchasing order. I need to get approval. It sounds like a lot of work, and they're going to want to avoid the pain. So what happened is when we looked at their perfect client, what we realized about these school nutrition directors is that they were being evaluated on how their school did in terms of profit and participation. Like, how much money did the school nutrition program make? Because they reinvest that into the school. And how many kids eat in the cafeteria, even if they're not buying their lunch, because they want kids to be able to learn. And there's studies that show if kids are not eating, they're not learning. So now when we call and we say, Hussein, are you interested? You know, like, you say, like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, we're the company that helps school nutrition increase their profits and participation.
Okay.
Now, can you see how that doesn't look the same?
Yeah.
We've moved from being a commodity to being couture.
Yeah, it's a different angle, a different
right?
Yeah.
And so that's where, like, helping people move from commodity to couture, it's really about getting that perfect client down, getting the messaging down. That you like, and my client's competing against Pizza Hut, Little Caesars, you know, all these other companies. He's competing against them making their own pizza, right? So it's really stepping him completely above in the conversation. So that's what I help entrepreneurs do, is to figure out that for your business, so that when you talk to people, they're like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that.
Exactly. You mentioned, like, for example, the little ones competing against the biggest one. So, for example, if we're speaking, for example, about restaurants, there are, for example, a lot of smaller restaurants. They have like 1 or 2 locations which make more delicious food than the big ones.
Yes.
You know? But why are they still small? Why are they not growing? Are they don't have the resources? Maybe the money at their disposal is much less. Can they do something about it to be more resourceful, let's say?
Yeah, it's interesting that you use those words, because Tony Robbins, when I was working for him, we did the first business mastery that ever existed. And in that first business mastery, this guy stood up, and I think this is a lot of the restaurant owners out there. It's the guy stood up and said, Tony, I've tried everything and nothing works. And Tony said, He said, well, what have you tried? And the guy said, oh, I tried this, this, and this. And so Tony said, okay, like, you've tried 3 things. How many times did you try it? And he said, well, I tried it a few times, but it wasn't working. And I ran out of money. I didn't have time. I didn't have the team. So Tony said to him, he said, let me ask you a question. It sounds like it sounds like you didn't have enough resources to grow the business and just put on this. Have you ever seen somebody that has less resources than you that has become more successful than you? And what happened was, the guy said, yeah, like, you always see these stories in magazines of somebody that came to the United States with $200, and they, like, even one of my, like, friends in my mastermind, she literally came to the United States from an Eastern European country with like a few $100, didn't speak much English, and she now has a multi-million-dollar business, right? So this person didn't look at their lack of resources, they became resourceful. And so that's what Tony said, is like, it's about becoming more resourceful. And I think this is where the restaurant owners fall down, is that they're so caught in the minutia of the restaurant, of ordering food, getting the waitresses there on time, you know, making sure it's clean, that they're not focusing on growing the company.
Yeah. Speaking of growing, I think maybe some of the reasons also could be they are afraid of growth. Maybe they see that they can't handle the growth.
Exactly. And that's where, like, I help clients add a 0 without the hustle, because nobody wants to add a 0 and be burned out and never sleep and not see their family. And so what we've done with the restaurant, I'll give you an example of becoming more resourceful. One of my coaches that works for me had a client that we used the hidden profit system, and we were looking at, okay, where's all the money that you have in your business that you can add without doing more marketing, without doing more advertising. And what happened was, they saw, and this was a little tiny restaurant in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. So it was not like a big city or anything. And what happened, I got so excited, my tripod is moving. So what happened was that we looked at, like, what if we just did an upsell? which is one of the hidden profits. What if every time somebody ordered something, you asked them if they wanted an appetizer, and you featured an appetizer every week? And it sounds like basics, but people were not doing it. They increased their sales like almost $2,000 a month just from asking one question, right? Which is $24,000 in a year. So then we looked at, all right, well, what are some of the other things that we can do? So we're always looking at what can you do with the resources that you have available, instead of trying to like, oh, let's go do a Facebook ad campaign that's going to cost thousands of dollars that may or may not get results. Let's optimize what you have.
Yeah, exactly. Optimization is important because if we're speaking about the restaurant business, for example, I worked in McDonald's long ago. So, if a customer comes in and say, I want the regular size meal, right? This is the smallest size for adults. So the cashier says, would you like it large? Always goes to the large immediately. Does not go to the medium, always to the large. Would you like apple pie with it? Would you like ice cream with it? So always upselling things.
That's, I think when I was a kid, like the most famous upsell is, do you want fries with that? Because when I was a kid, and I'm older than you probably, but like when I was a kid, we used to get like a little tiny hamburger at McDonald's and that was it, or drink. And we were like super excited because we didn't eat out very much. And they would say, do you want fries with that? Right. So now instead of a drink and a sandwich, it was like 3 things. Now McDonald's already assumes that you want all 3 things, right? Because that's become part of their business culture of like, oh, I just order a trio, right? You always get a trio. And so now it's like, do you want to supersize that?
Exactly.
Right? Do you want an apple pie with that? So they're really good at that. And small business owners can do that with just one question. If you can train a teenager to do that, you can train anybody to do that in your business.
Exactly. It's not that hard. It could make a lot of difference. So So how do you do it? The process. So you yourself, when you're working with your clients, what do you go through to make your clients go and add a zero?
Well, first of all, when they come on, I'm very selective of who I work with. So we do an onboarding session to see if we're a good fit energetically and in alignment. Then once we decide that we want to work together, they fill out a big questionnaire. It's very similar to what I did when I was vice president of consulting with Tony Robbins. And a lot of the clients, they say that they have a ton of ahas just from filling out this questionnaire, because it's making them think of their business in a different way, right? And it's making them think like a real business. And then what we do, I have a 7-step system that I take people through to add a zero. So the first thing that we look at is your mindset, right? The money mindset, the upper beliefs that they have that are holding them back. Like, I can't make 6 figures and be a mom. I can't make 6 figures. And like when I moved, I lived in a foreign country. So when I started my business, I had moved from Philadelphia to the Montreal area, and I lived in a little tiny village that nobody spoke English, and I had a baby, right? So it was like overcoming that mindset belief of like, oh, I can do this in a foreign country. I can do this with a baby. I can do this and still have the life that I want. And then we look at your hidden profits. So we look at where are all the areas in your business that are, little places that we can add that you can increase your money without doing any more marketing or advertising. The average small business finds $85,000 of hidden profits in their business.
Okay, so this is something that they even don't look at or don't know that exists in the business.
Like we just talked about an upsell, right? People have heard about an upsell, right? It's a basic business strategy. But they're not doing it. So what I do is I show them, okay, if your business is at $10,000 a month and you ask X number of people and 30% of them take it, what would that look like? Could you add another $1,000 a month? Could you add another $3,000 a month? Could you add another $10,000 a month?
Yeah, but it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
And when you paint that picture of what's possible, it really like shows them like, oh, that would be easy. Like I had a guy years ago who was in the middle of the recession. He was in a very small southern town, and he all of a sudden had all these big box competitors moving in, right? And what happened was he said, I can't do anything to grow my business. I don't have any more money for marketing or advertising. These people are advertising on TV like all the time. There's nothing I can do. And I said, all right, well, when we looked at his company, the first thing I said is like, when he filled out the questionnaire, I was like, I think you probably need to cut staff, because he told me his staff was not listening to him. They were not doing anything he asked. Like, it was very, very difficult. And when I told him this in our session, he's like, I can't cut any staff. He said, we live in a really small town. Half of the people, he said, everybody knows each other. He said, some of these are my uncles, like they were 80 years old. Some of them are his nephews. He said, the other people I go to church with, he said, I could not hold my head up in church if I laid off people during the recession, right? And so I was like, all right, we have to get creative here. So we did, actually the upsell was the thing we did with him. We added that upsell. He increased his business 48% in 1 month.
Ooh, whoa.
With one question.
Ooh.
With one question. So that's the power of the hidden profits. I'm writing a book that, well, actually the book is written. We're ready to get it published now on hidden profits. Then we look at the perfect clients, like we mentioned earlier, like who are those people that are going to be your perfect clients, that are going to buy more, stay longer, refer more. Like, I've had clients that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with me because they've gotten results. They get the return on investment in the coaching, so they stay with me forever, right? Then we look at the strategic positioning, which we looked at a little bit today, is like, how do you position your company so that it stands out against the bigger companies, and you get a message that's like, that's them, as opposed to it could apply to any other business out there. Then the next thing we do is we look at your offers, your packaging, your pricing. Like, how can you improve your pricing? Like, I've had clients that have gone from $1,500 a month to $2,500 a month. I've had clients go from $1,500 to $9,600 a month because of the way we structured their packages, right? And so that's really important to look at the pricing. I actually have a program that I do that's a free Raise Your Rates masterclass that actually helps, because that's something that I feel like so many people need to do, but they don't know how to do it. So that's something that I offer for free for people to like start to get some money in the door quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So
and
you
then
mentioned, speak.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Then the last two things we do in the Add a Zero system is to stack your marketing, because the most dangerous number of anything is 1. And so you want to have this stack that's working all the ways and driving traffic back to your site. I'll give you an example. I just got shut down on Instagram again yesterday. Like, they completely wiped out my account in November, and yesterday they just froze me. I'm like, I am not posting anything that is against the rules, nothing. It's just really weird. So that's why you want to have a nice stack, because you can't count on these big companies.
You can't count on social media companies. You never know, because I'm sure like Facebook, Instagram, all these kind of businesses like change things all the time, change the rules, change the privacy policies. They change all the time. So you want to make sure that it's not your land, basically.
No, exactly. And that's where it's really, really important. And even like back in the olden days, I had a client who they passed a law of the do not call, right? Like, before, people used to be able to do telemarketing. He was selling timeshares. He had over 100 employees. He had to lay off his whole team because they couldn't call anybody anymore, like overnight. Like, and he was a very successful business, but he was relying on one thing. And so don't think that it can't happen to us now with the internet, right? Like, they could pass a law, like, England passed laws, Europe passed laws that have really hurt people's businesses. So we need to have that stack working for us. And then the last thing we do is optimize your sales process. So everything from when you get a lead to when the person comes on board, to really optimize that, to make the most amount of money, and to also serve the client at the highest level.
You mentioned the pricing. Is the pricing the most important thing to compete to competition, or there are more important things to compete for and focus on?
It is. It is not the most important thing at all. In fact, a lot of my clients charge way more than their competition. And I'll give you an example. I have a gentleman who is in the logistics industry, and he's grown his business from 6 to 8 figures since we worked together, competing against much bigger companies. Now, he's competing against these companies that have hundreds of salespeople that are calling all day and saying, let me quote you, let me quote you, let me quote you. And they're just trying to get the lowest quote and sell the lowest quote. Now, my client, we've created his marketing plan, we've created his sales process, and we will actually tell people, listen, I'm not going to be the cheapest. We'll actually even say that. And we will say, here's why. When your client invests in something from you and they want to have it delivered on Tuesday at 3 p.m., right? Let's say, for example, it was a piece of medical equipment and you've shut down the whole hospital diagnostics department to have this piece of equipment delivered. Tuesday, 3 p.m. comes, guess what? It's not there.
Yeah, what's the
Guess
point,
what?
especially,
You've spent 2 years probably trying to sell that piece of equipment to a hospital, maybe more, maybe 5 years. It's a long sales cycle. You have blown it on delivery to tick off your client that now they don't want to buy equipment from you anymore. So what if your logistics could be a value add in your sales process as opposed to a bottom line, like a cost?
Yeah, exactly.
See, like you can see how that's completely different messaging than let me quote you, and it's put him in a couture thing is that they're above all of these people down here that are saying, let me get it for you for the lowest price.
So you mentioned you have a book or a book coming, Hidden Profits.
Yes, I'm so excited about it.
What about that? Tell us.
So it came from that conversation with Tony Robbins when he said being more resourceful. And that came at the time of the recession in 2008, 2009. And what happened was overnight, clients had things dry up, right? The marketing wasn't working. They didn't have credit lines available. They were like cut off overnight, which we're seeing happening right now, in the US. Banks have cut credit lines in the last week. So what we looked at is like, instead of saying, all right, let's do all of these things that cost money, what can we do to add revenue without doing more marketing and advertising? So that's all the things in the hidden profits are ways that you can add revenue without doing more marketing and advertising. The money that's hidden in your business.
I love it. It's like kind of a shortcut. Add zero without spending a zero.
I like that.
I'm a fan of adding zero, because some people say if you get for example extra 100, 200, 1,000. I actually always tell them I like to add a zero more than to add 100 or 1,000.
Yes, exactly.
I like this concept.
So we have the same mindset.
So give us one takeaway from this episode, Stacey.
What I would tell you is that you have things you don't need to go look for a magic bullet. You don't need to go look for the newest, like, oh, let's go do TikTok or let's go do Clubhouse or anything like that. You have money right there in your business. You just need to go find it and you need to put it into action. So don't just learn, like take something that you learned from this episode and go implement it.
Yeah, exactly. Tony always says massive action always get results. Yes, right. Yeah. For example,
for sure,
it is true. Eventually, if you learn and get the knowledge or whatever it is, if you don't implement it, it's not good. For example, for me, regarding this podcast, for example, I got courses and eventually, okay, you learn, but doing the thing, actually trying to put episodes out there, to publish it, whatever it is that you learn in the course, it's going to be different, and you look at differently when you actually implement things and how you do things. So action is the most important thing. You can have some flaws, that's okay. Nothing is perfect. You learn every day and you get improved every day on the process. Yeah,
exactly. And my oldest daughter is a gymnast,
Oh, cool.
And she was a national level gymnast, top 50 gymnast in
Awesome.
Canada until she broke her back.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I
Oh,
know.
she
Yeah,
okay
no, it's
now?
not good. Yeah, she's okay now, but she doesn't compete anymore. But the thing I learned from her was like, when you see gymnasts and the Olympics are coming up, watch, like, it's like micro things that make a difference between a gold medal and a silver medal or a bronze medal. And what I learned from my daughter was like these corrections. It's like you do something, like I could watch a video of doing it all day long, but until I actually try to do it, I'm not going to know, oh, like feel that balance, feel that, whatever it is. And what I learned from her is the corrections, but also I learned to get up faster. So
Yeah.
no matter what you do, so say for example, you go today and you're like, I'm going to try an upsell. And the person says, oh, stop trying to sell me an appetizer. Like I'm not that hungry. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to offer that ever again. Right.
No,
No,
no.
just because you got a no
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't work.
You
You
need to
have to
try
get
it
up
again.
faster. You need to try it again. And that's what I saw with my daughter, is that she would fall off the balance beam over and over and over again. And when her head coach was from Romania, very tough,
Very
and
tough,
she said to me, she said, your daughter, I've been watching her, and none of the coaches are paying attention to your daughter, right? None of them. And she said, but she was the new head coach. She said, I want to work with your daughter. I know she can go national because she gets up. She gets up faster and she does it again. And that's what separated her from all the kids that did provincial level gymnastics to all the kids that could go national, is that she got up faster and she didn't give up.
Great, awesome. Never give up. Always rise up. Actually, when I was a kid, I watched the Sydney Olympics. I think that was like, I don't know, more than 10 years ago, I think. So I watched this kind of sport, like gymnasts and the people who diving. They call it free diving, or I don't know what they call it. So these kind of things, you look at it and you say it might be easy, but when you actually look, you have a deep dive into it. It's like a very accurate thing. It's about the millimeters, like you mentioned. Someone wins the gold medal from the silver medal. Like, this is the difference.
Yeah, it's so funny because my daughter, after gymnastics, we were trying to find her another sport because of her back, and we took her diving, and she actually trained. She went from training with 2 Olympic coaches in gymnastics to training with Olympic coaches in diving, and she hated it. She was really like, the coach was so excited because he's like, oh my gosh, we have a gymnast.
Yeah,
like,
she has the
they make
form.
really good.
Yeah.
And she literally has like the diving, physique, and she has the moves, and she hated it. So you have to have the passion and the heart for it.
Yeah, exactly. So Tracy, where can people get in touch with you?
Go to staceyhylen.com to you can book a free session with me, and we'll see how you can add a zero to your business without the hustle. The other place I would tell you is go to raiseyourratesmasterclass.com, that you can get a free series that shows you how to raise your rates.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Awesome having you on the Success Grid podcast.
Thank you.